Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the Elevate Winter Series, Part 3, Health of Our Protest. We did have a few technical difficulties earlier, so I just want to reassure you that we will work through them tonight together. Live theater is incredible. My name is Christina D. Eskridge. I'm the founder and executive director of Elevate Theater Company, and I'm excited for the continuation of this Elevate Winter Series. If this is your first time joining us, you are in for a treat. Elevate is theater for health. We take health topics, place them into a performance piece, and then we provide a panel of health and wellness experts to help you, our community, and our audience digest and dive a little deeper. Feel free to get comfortable, grab a snack, and get ready for an incredible evening of storytelling and informative discussion. I join you tonight from the unceded lands of the Ohlone people, or Dublin, California. And Elevate resides on the stolen lands of the Wappinger and Munsee Lenape people, or Manhattan, New York. We elevate and honor all Indigenous people, past, present, and future. Where do you reside? Let us know in the chat. I know some of you have already started and are continuing with that tradition. Let's make a point to learn about our communities, who lived there before us, who lives there now. Let's continue to recognize that we are all shaped by those who came before, and we will shape those who come after. Tonight, we bring you Part 3, Health of Our Protest. This is select performances by poetry and spoken word artists Ashley Winkfield, Yalie Saweda Kamara, and Marcus John. We will explore the concept of Black fatigue through the unique lens of each of these artists. After the performances, we will be joined by health and wellness experts Stephen Powell, Mary Frances Winters, Sharon Frazier, and Dr. Tiana Woolridge. Between the performances and the panel, Elevate will help you define Black fatigue, give you an understanding of how it manifests, and why it's important to talk about and build resilience in the Black community. I want to acknowledge that tonight is a heavy topic. It's triggering. And although there are no graphic images in the content that we'll be sharing, some of this might cause you a visceral reaction. And it's important that we have this conversation. It's important because racism is the underlying cause of Black fatigue, and racism is a public health emergency. It's important because we're in a unique moment in history. We had an insurrection last week. Nooses were hung. This week, the president has been impeached for the second time in his single term in office. Black people are being harassed and reported to the police for doing everyday, ordinary activities like bird watching. And we have allies who are starting to shout loud and clear, Black Lives Matter. So, if our communities in this moment are paying attention, if our allies are listening carefully, and we decide to take action towards healing this hurt, this could be a moment that serves as a turning point. We can look at racism, acknowledge it, and its impact on the health and wellness of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. We're starting a new year, and we can start with a new perspective. We can start with more information, and we can dig deeper into better awareness and actions towards combating this centuries-old man-made concept of racism and all its manifestations. I'd like to dedicate this evening's event to my late uncle, Dr. William Love. An educator, a community leader, an advocate for the Black community always. My work is inspired by his legacy. And now, please enjoy Part 3, Health of Our Protest. What is Black fatigue? According to best-selling author and award-winning consultant Mary Frances Winters, Black fatigue is repeated variations of stress that results in extreme exhaustion and cause mental, physical, and spiritual maladies that are passed down from generation to generation. What does it look like? Stress? Determination? Anguish? Contemplation? Questioning? Does it shout, think, kneel? Is it the extreme exhaustion from being Black in America? Why does it matter? Because it's literally killing Black people. Black women, Black babies, Black trans folk. Black men are worn down from repeated variations of stress. Racism. You know how you're tired right now from COVID, from staying inside, from wearing a mask? The Zoom fatigue. You know that anxious feeling you get from the combination of the news and the kids and work and everything else in between? The ache in your bones when you're not well? Think about that stress and imagine adding to it. Add to it the stress and constant worry, the fear your son or daughter won't come home. Add to it being stopped by the police. Add to it being passed over for a promotion. Add to it the suppression of your vote. Add repeatedly, not just for months, not just for a year, for your whole life. Why does it matter? Because Black lives matter.
I can't believe this is happening again. How am I supposed to write about Black fatigue when I am already so tired? Every week, another death. Every week, another Black trans woman found murdered. Another day to put on the mask and pretend that everything is okay. Another time to do the work for people who can never understand, even if they want to. Another day to try not to be angry. One more explanation. One more. Richard, Daniel, George, Breonna. A Black body has been killed by police every week this year. The longest year ever. How can I revel and celebrate Black joy and Black pride when all I can see is Black pain and Black fear? I am crushed by the weight of it all. I am crushed by the weight of it all. How do I keep this going? How do I keep this going? Who's next?
Mr. Speaker, I rise today on behalf of every black family that has been robbed of a child, on behalf of every family member that has been forced to see their loved one lynched on national television, driving while black, jogging while black, sleeping while black. We have been criminalized for the very way we show up in the world. Under the harsh gaze of far too many, my black body is seen as a threat, always considered armed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are plagued by riots and demonstrations. Why? Black lives matter. All lives matter, obviously. But what does it mean when we say Black lives matter? Boys, girls, black people of all ages, even in this county, have received differential treatment from our police force. Now, these fine men and women in uniform were merely just doing their jobs, trying to keep the peace. But how can we say that it is equal treatment when we have seen the differences in judgments between black and white teenagers? When black drivers are pulled over more often, when black people are killed in our... Hold on now. I'm merely suggesting that we could all do more to support one another, to not jump to conclusions about our neighbors. We are all part of this human race. We are all citizens of this great nation.
I said it right! Everybody want me to be calm. Do you know how them bullets hit my son? What they did to his body as they hit his body?
Junior, get in here. Have a seat, son. Have you been paying attention to the news lately? Have you heard of Trayvon Martin or Tamir Rice? No? What about Michael Brown or Jordan Davis? These boys were killed. Some by police and some by people who thought they had authority. I know you're a good kid. So were they. And just because someone assumed that they were up to no good, they just... Look, I just need you to be careful, okay? You have to start paying attention to how you look and who you're with. And I don't care if you're at school or at the market or on your way home, you have to be aware. Keep your hands out of your pockets. Don't play your music too loud. Be polite. Don't run on the sidewalks. Put your hoodie down. And if somebody starts asking you questions, don't get angry, even if you didn't do anything. I know it's unfair, but I need you to come home. You hear me?
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here during tonight's event. I want to start off by thanking Christina Eskridge and Elevate Theater for putting together such an intentional and urgent event. I'm thrilled to be sharing space with fellow brilliant artists, Ashleen Marcus, and the esteemed panel of experts addressing Black fatigue. I'll be reading poems from my first full-length manuscript entitled Besaydoo, and it's a collection of poems that examines care and what happens during its presence and during its absence. Many of Besaydoo's poems revolve around Black diaspora, women, and my heart and home, Oakland, California. While Oakland is a city that has so deeply informed my character, my passions and perspectives and values, it's also a city that serves as a site of betrayal. And when I think about that betrayal, what comes to mind is I often find myself thinking about Nia Wilson, who was an 18-year-old Black woman who was senselessly murdered 2 summers ago in Oakland, California at the MacArthur BART station. And the station has relevance to me because it was the BART station closest to my childhood home and the one that I used twice a day in my commute to and from work. In the past, I've noticed the media has often hesitated to call what happened to Nia Wilson a racially motivated incident, but when considering the optics of the victim and the aggressor, it's hard to see it otherwise. I've also realized that when we talk about Nia Wilson or hear about her in the media, it's often thinking about her death and the murder, the details of the murder, and not who she was in life. In order to honor her and to think about how I can have agency in shaping the narrative of Black people, I decided to create a poetic form in her honor, and I call it the Nia. And it is a form that consists of 100 blessings. And the objective of this is to lean into restoration, reclamation, and resurrecting any memory of Black life that feels to be fading out of its rightful place in the public consciousness, and to celebrate the life of those who have fallen senselessly. Memorializing Nia Wilson, 100 blessings. Bless your 18 years. Bless the 19th, if even spent, from an Oakland in the hereafter. Bless eternity. Bless the stibnite hue of flight. My good God, bless the anima and everything in and around the body. Bless the mandible, the deep ecru of bone, the 32 teeth. Bless the organ, the skin. Bless the soft parts, the cheek, the neck, the mouth, the tongue, the voice. Bless the vessel. Bless 378291 North, 1222670 West. The coordinates of the MacArthur BART station platform. Bless you whole again. Bless Oakland great again. Bless Blackness magnificent again. Bless the overlooked, the phenotype undamned. Bless technology and collective memory, the hashtag and the digital archive. The hashtag and the digital archive. Bless your dream deferred of being an EMT. Bless the way the irony of the vocation pushes against your death. Bless your origin story, the magenta hollow of your mother's womb and the chestnut tint of your father's hand. Bless your style. Bless all the time it took for you to get dressed for even a trip to the corner store. Bless the annoying things we do that become our legacy. Bless the toothbrush. Bless the gel. Bless the head. Bless the baby hairs. Bless their swirl formation on your edges and their cinematic motion. Bless waves cascading off the cliffs of your temples. Bless you unshook as obsidian. Bless you unshook as onyx. Bless the scripture of your name. Bless the regal thread stitched into each letter of who you are and what you have been called into. Bless Nia, which is to say purpose or intention. Bless Wilson, which is to say son of will, fate, or destiny. Bless it whole, Nia Dene Wilson. Bless the circuitous path of hemoglobin. Bless the blood and its peripatetic flow. Bless your 5 brothers and 2 sisters. Bless Tifa, who stabbed 2 held you in her arms. Bless her words, I got you, baby, I got you. Bless the tears, the wet gospel of one sister into another. Bless the unknown. Bless its swarthy light crunch underfoot. Bless the hour. Bless the minute, bless minutia, bless the second, bless the overlooked, bless the crescendoed whisper calling you home, bless the pulse point and the wonder of its music, Bless its new sound here after, like a tambourine slapped under river water. Bless the overlooked. Bless even the shadow under the blessing. Bless the heart, the platinum star. Bless the tumble. Bless the spill. Bless the slip. Bless the ache. Bless the wound and the tourniquet. Bless the coming. Bless the going. Bless the echo. Nia, Nia, Nia. Bless the fleeting. Bless the fleet you join. Nia. Blessed escape. Blessed sleep. Blessed rest. Bless the reckoning. Bless the courtroom. Bless the trial. Bless all who suffer the weight of witness. Bless the wound and the tourniquet. Bless the vanishing cicatrice. Bless it backwards from your torso. Bless it backwards from Tifa's neck. Bless you whole. Bless the breath, the loss, and the breath. Bless the broken time. Bless the vigil. Bless the candles. Bless the lights. Bless the hand that lights the candle. Bless the flicker, the flicker, the flicker. Bless the thicker fire, the flame that blazes. Bless all that it holds but does not burn. Bless what it does not burn. Bless the heat. Bless the rise. Bless ascent. My God, bless the sky. Bless the children. Bless what we try to build and build. Bless all whom we lift from concrete, all whom we pull from dirt. Bless this new color of the soul, its mighty incandescence. Bless all whom hoist high enough to touch the sun, high enough to be delivered, high enough to be received. Nia, Nia, Nia. The second poem is entitled Besaydoo, and it's kind of a screenshot, a capture into Black tenderness. And I dedicate this to my mother, one of my muses. Besaydoo. While sipping coffee in my mother's Toyota, we hear the bird call of two teenage boys in the parking lot. One says, Besaydoo, the other returns as they reach for each other. Their cupped handshake pops like the first fat firecrackers of summer. Their fingers shimmy as if they're solving a Rubik's Cube just beyond our sight. Moments later, their Schwinn's head in opposite directions. My mother turns to me, revealing the milky John Waters mustache-thin foam on her upper lip. Waiting them Besaydoo, not English, she asks, tickled by this tangle of new language. All right, be safe, dude. I pull apart each syllable like string cheese for her. Oh yeah. Demnagil Padi, she smiles, surprisingly broken by the tenderness expressed by what half my family might call thugs. Besaydoo, 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 we chirp in the car, the nightly into our phones after I leave California. Besaydoo, she says as she softly muffles the rattling of my bones in newfound sobriety. Besaydoo, I say years later, her response made raspy by an oxygen treatment at the ER. Besaydoo, we whisper to each other across the country. Like some word from deep and a somewhere too newborn pure for the outdoors. But we saw those two boys do it in broad daylight under a decadent, ruinous sun. Besaydoo, Besaydoo, we say, Besaydoo, and split one more for the road. For all the struggle, tumble, drown. Besaydoo, we say, to get on the good foot. We got off of the phone, tight like the bulbous air of two palms that have just kissed. Thank you.
It's 4 a.m. I didn't want to write this poem. Tired of the same old sad song, long pandemic nights with the TV still on, sick of being tired, trying not to get sick, sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yeah, your Black friends are tired. When your women aren't protected, children's needs neglected, heroes come crashing down, kings ascend into the clouds, and the world looks to our broken minds to change the times and lead yet another racial diversity and inclusion in the workplace training, lecture, or seminar. I don't have the degree. Teaching Black boxes how to love thy neighbor, that's not my ministry. Let me sleep. If I choose to stay awake, I can't complain. Trauma, insomnia, roll and wind me up. I'm black, I'm proud, drop bars like hot bows, roll another and turn the music up. Riding the clouds to try and escape this heartache and nausea. Clap, boom, pow. Another one bites the dust. Solve this riddle. If I play fiddle for felines or push Lucy's for 10 dimes, which makes me a criminal? I rhyme slow in the nighttime and lie awake until my mind hits the brakes. I've had nightmares, but this shit takes the cake. Let me sleep. The mind wanders. It gets confusing. For fleeting moments, a boy may wonder things, think only in colors. You have to be seen, green, no bad news, Eveline, Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, red jelly bean found in the pocket of one's coat. Video of a screaming goat. Who's the goat? Is it Jordan, Kobe, or LeBron? Bishop Don Magic Wand was a preacher and a pimp. The definition of the slang term simp, the recognition of a predisposition to love. Then 14 minutes on her IG page with hard eyes under every other post. Me, I'm careful not to double tap. That would raise suspicion or ignite the unrelenting topic of commitment. Get out of there. Run. Maybe to clear my mind, I'll go for one. Not so fast. Excuse me? Or on the wrong block. I'm sorry. A black man running at night? Now that's a scary sight. Well, I mean, the sun will be up soon. My nigga, you still scary in broad daylight. We'll call it a pre-existing condition. A horn blares in the distance. Derailing now any train of thought where there's no silence, there's no drifting. You just lay and look for answers until you find yourself asleep. Nightly acne adapts me up. I wake up choking, yelling back at us, back it up, the system's broken. I'm knee deep, I can't sleep, but I still fight. This ain't new. We've been marching since our first step. We'll be protesting till our last breath. The fight's been on, the night's been long, the rights have been wrong. We'll still be out when the lights come on. It's 4 a.m. and we in round 12, but can I sleep? So let me prepare. Tie back my hair and grab my weapons, unsheath my pen and sling these lessons. I gotta fight until my ink run out, until my stink burn out. Then put my target back on, pick up my picket and return to the bout. I put my hands up, because with my hands up, they still gonna blast, hold their head back and laugh. They want the best grades, so goodbye, they kiss my black ass like I'm the teacher. Well, let me learn you one thing. As sure as birds do sing and diamonds bloom, I'm gonna shine and fly like Boeing jet planes being sanitized. Free my mind from fear and anger, peep the danger, load the chamber, shoot back these words in hopes they mangle your twisted views of who's worthy and who's worth less. You tried to strangle us with a capital U-S, that bangled banner you wrapped around our necks, but we still breathing. Heaving revolutionary rhetoric, even better, it is said with our chest from the highest crest that we won't rest until our daughters and sons are not slaughtered for fun, until the war on racism is won, until the prism of my people can see the sun, refracted light, our colors shining bright across this stolen land. You are hell-bent on putting us under, as if this country doesn't already rest on our backs. My black will not crack, so stop trying to break me. Let me be, let me free, let me peace, let me sleep.
Bravo. I'd like to invite Yalie and Marcus back to the stage. Please join me in welcoming them. Oh, what tremendous performances. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, I'm like, oh, this was so good. I would love to have a quick chat, ask each one of you one question each, just so our audience gets a little bit of a taste of who you are. We got such beautiful performances. Yalie, I'd like to start with you. Would you tell us a little bit about these two pieces? Why did you pick them and put them together for this particular show?
So I wanted to put these two pieces together because it was an attempt to resist racial tropes of Black life. And so often we see Black life being obliterated And I wanted to have a moment to restore the tenderness that is the cornerstone of Blackness. And I wanted to just, I wanted to push against this trope through using joy and through using intimacy and through using images that constitute the integrity of Blackness instead of disintegrating it and pulling it apart. And I think that the public consciousness needs to be more aware of just the value and the preciousness of Black life. And so this was my attempt to just to highlight and bring that into relief.
That's fantastic. I think you've done a tremendous job through both the Blessings for Nia Wilson, as well as this very vivid image of you, your mother, your family exchanging Besaydoo, and these young boys who brought that term into your life and now into ours. So thank you very much for sharing something so intimate. Marcus, talk about intimacy. This piece was not actually intended for an audience. Would you tell us a little bit about A, how you feel right now that you've shared it with all of us, and B, what you're hoping the audience walks away with now that they've heard it?
I feel good. I feel really good. It wasn't meant to be shared. It was just something I wrote literally because I could not sleep one night. But when I had the opportunity to do this, I expounded on it, added things, created the video. And I just hope that people take away the humanity of Black men, of Black people, of people who are struggling with this, with other things. We don't know what people are going through or how late they were up last night. So hopefully you just keep that in mind and, lead with love and empathy when you're in the world.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Marcus. Thank you so much, Yalie. We'll invite you back again at the end. For now, I'd like to invite our panelists to this virtual stage to dive a little deeper into this context and this concept of Black fatigue. Yalie, Marcus, thank you for starting us off and getting us such a wonderful window into how we're going to discuss this today. Welcome, everyone. I am so overjoyed to be able to have this conversation. Panelists, welcome to the stage. Elevate has curated a few questions for each of you so that we can get through multiple points in this very important and layered topic. So audience, I want you to put your questions in the chat as always, and we will try to get to as many as possible in after a couple of curated questions. So to start out, I'd love for each of our panelists to introduce themselves, your name, where you reside, and what work you do. Sharon Frazier, would you like to go first?
Yes, hi, I am Sharon. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I am here in Oakland, the Bay Area. My career for the last 10 years, I've been doing community mental health. I work with those diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I also own a private practice. I always tease that I am a professional adulter, right? An adulting conversationalist. So I really help people navigating relationships, babies, life, career, and just how to maintain our mental wellness in doing those things. So that's it. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Stephen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Powell. I'm the Chief Programs and Partnerships Officer at the National Cares Mentoring Movement, and I reside in Montclair, New Jersey.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here. Tiana, Dr. Woolridge.
Yes. Hey, everyone. So excited to be here. My name is Dr. T. I am a pediatric resident physician at the University of California, San Francisco. Also the creator and founder of a school-based mental wellness program called Embrace the Mind, with a goal to provide education on mental health, reduce stigma associated with mental illness, and equip students, teachers, and families with tools to build mental wellness. So thank you for having me here, because this, the wellness, my soul needed this. I danced, I snapped, I was in church for a little while, and I was in the club, I was dancing. So this was amazing. Thank you, guys.
So glad. Thank you for being here. And Mary Frances Winters, last but certainly not least, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Thank you so much, Christina. And I too am just overjoyed. You see, I'm just smiling, from ear to ear. This is just wonderful. Thank you so much for convening this. I'm Mary Frances Winters. I'm president and CEO of the Winters Group Incorporated. 36 years ago, I left the corporate world because I wasn't being valued or respected. And back then, I didn't quite understand all of what we're talking about now, but I knew that it wasn't right. So I left, and I've had my own business, and my incredible team and I work with a lot of large corporations. I'm supporting them in this thing that we call diversity, inclusion, and equity. And now we are introducing more social justice kinds of concepts into the corporate world. So that's what I've done for the last 36 years. I thought I was going to retire, but with the times as they are, I think I got a few more years left.
I was going to say, and then 2020 happened and you felt compelled to stay. Well, I would love to start with you actually for the questions that we have, because you've actually written a book called Black Fatigue, How Racism Erodes the Mind, Body, and Spirit. And if you haven't seen it, audience, please go ahead, check out our resource page. We do have it listed there. Would love to understand, Mary Frances, what made you decide to write this book? It's perfectly timed, if you will. And what do you want the audience to take away from it?
So, the work that we do in the corporate world, I was hearing particularly from millennials and Gen Zs that we're tired, we're exhausted. And I would tease sometimes, in some of the work that we're doing in sessions and, training sessions, when I tease and I'd say, you're 30 years old. How are you fatigued already? How are you tired already? And they would look at me with that side eye, like, we respect you because we know you're older, but we know we're tired. And so I just really started to think about it. And the work that I've been doing, for all these years, I'm saying, would I really say that I'm fatigued? I wouldn't necessarily think about it that way. Sure, I know Fannie Lou Hamer said, sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I had the opportunity through a friend to talk to to talk to Ambassador Andrew Young. I didn't speak to him, but through a friend I did. She asked him about, fatigue during the civil rights era. And he said, no, we never talked about being fatigued. He said, Dr. King would say, I'd tell Dr. King, I have a migraine headache. Dr. King would say, get on that plane, your headache will go away. So he said, we never, even though we were tired, we never really, articulated it that way. I don't think my generation did either. We thought it was our job, to just continue the fight. And what I'm loving, about the generation that probably some of you all are in is the acknowledgement of the fatigue, the acknowledgement of the importance of well-being, and the acknowledgement that it's not our job to teach white people and to teach those who are oppressed. It's not our responsibility. And, people said that long time ago. James Baldwin said it, back in the 60s, it's white people's responsibility. But I think most of us have always looked at it as our responsibility to be the teachers. So that was the impetus for Black Fatigue. It came from, the younger generations are saying, we're tired. And then I started to research it and research this notion of intergenerational fatigue.
Well, it's fantastic. It's really highlighted for me that intergenerational, that connection being passed down from generation to generation, and how it really seeps into our everyday life. And you talk a lot in the book about how Black fatigue is driven by a variety of factors, things, from health disparities to education to politics, the criminal justice system. You talk about sublime ignorance of white folks and this idea that there's multifaceted, we're getting hit from all angles. And so I'm really curious about, if we as an audience, as a community, as an Elevate community, if we were to pick one area, now this is really boiling it down and oversimplifying, I completely understand, but if we were to try and choose one area to focus on, what would be your recommendation, and how would you advise this community to start attacking Black fatigue and counteracting it?
So you're asking me how our community would do it, but because I would really sort of put the onus and the burden on the dominant community. So I was like, I guess I'm naive. I'm Pollyanna. So when George Floyd happened and all that ensued from that, and all of these corporate leaders came out and said, we didn't know that racism still existed. And so now we're going to give more money, to Black organizations, and we're going to have anti-racism. And I'm like, so what have I been doing for 36 years in these corporations telling you all this? And now all of a sudden you're surprised. So I think we need to hold leaders, I call them power brokers. We talk about allies a lot, but I want to talk about power brokers, because allies are great, but allies can't always change systems. People in power can change systems. And we saw, not necessarily they changed systems, but we saw decisions. After George Floyd, we saw folks make decisions. Now, making Juneteenth a holiday is not going to change any system. However, but we saw people could do that. They could say, I'm going to do that, and that's going to happen. And so there are people in power who can change systems. And I think we have to hold them accountable for doing so. And I think we do that. I think you do that beautifully, through art. Through the art that and through theater. But I think the message, the publisher said when we talked about this book, And they were excited about the book. They said, well, who is the book for? I said, it's a book for Black people. I said, no, the book is for white people, but we know we're fatigued, right? But what's happening is that, in fact, many Black people are reading it and saying, you know, I really didn't connect my fatigue to racism. And so it's been really helpful, to do that. So I think the one message is, look what's happening in our country right today. I mean, come on, it's like it's falling apart. Okay, folks who are in power, and it's mostly white folks who are in power, they need to step up. So that would be my message.
Fair enough. I love it. Let's use those power brokers. Let's make sure that we are focusing in on them and holding them accountable. Thank you so much for that. Stephen, I'd love to chat with you a little bit about the work that you do in mentoring and how you see Black fatigue manifesting in the mentoring world, either in the kids, in the mentors, in the folks that you work with on staff. How is that showing up?
Well, first, let me just say thank you for this moment, Steen and the esteemed guests and healing artists. The fatigue is real. And I look at this as a vitamin C boost for the culture, for community. And when I think about our work and how Black fatigue shows up, it's kind of important to explain how the National Cares Mentoring Movement was founded. It was founded on the heels of Hurricane Katrina. Susan L. Taylor, the former editor-in-chief of Essence Magazine, was at Essence Magazine at the time. And she saw the devastation that really impacted communities of color in New Orleans. And so the National Cares Mentoring Movement was initially called Essence Cares, and then it grew into the National Cares Mentoring Movement. So in our work, we provide culturally anchored, holistic, healing-centered group mentoring protocols for communities of color. And we go into many underserved communities around the country. We have 58 affiliates in 26 states that recruit, train, and deploy African-American mentors to fill the pipeline of organizations that are in need of mentors. But we've also built our own group mentoring program to really look at something that Harry Belafonte said years ago. He said, we can't heal community until we heal what's hurting ourselves. So restoration, wellness, health is very important for us before we put mentors in front of our young people. So the way that fatigue shows up in my work, I mean, number one, as an executive, there's fundraising fatigue. Black-led organizations are always struggling to raise the resources to be able to sustain our programs. And what we're very sensitive about is creating drive-by programs, which creates traumas in communities when those programs can't remain in those communities. We have teachers and other educators in schools that have committed to doing this work in under-resourced schools. And those schools and those children they're being measured by the same yardstick as their white counterpart in suburban areas. So the way that Black fatigue shows up, it shows up as food insecurities. It shows up with young people who will say to you, I have more funeral programs than books, because they're in communities where there's a lot of violence. And when people don't see that and understand what our young people are dealing with, or even what they deal with when they come into schools and have to deal with aggressive school resource officers that are also under stress. So the healing work that we bring in, we're looking to transform not just the young people that we're serving, but those adults that are caring for them and taking care of them. And then we also have programs in Atlanta where we harness the brilliance of HBCU students to serve as mentors in STEM, and then a University for Parents program that helps to build workforce development opportunities to be able to disrupt this generational poverty.
Fantastic. We have the CARES National Mentoring Movement on our website as well. So please check them out. Make sure that you explore further. I'm curious, Steve, how do you see mentoring specifically as we move forward? You know, Mary Frances talked about holding those power brokers accountable. I'm curious, how do you see mentoring as a way of restoring and building Black resilience in the community? And do you see storytelling as a part of that work?
Absolutely. We were blessed to have an amazing 60-member brain trust create our healing protocol, which is called A New Way Forward to Healing What's Hurt in Black America. So this is a healing protocol that is turned into a curriculum where the mentors that are coming into our program go through 10 pillars that really help to start with heritage, move into stress management, and other restorative practices. We can't fight Black resilience until we are what we look at as being culturally inoculated or spiritually inoculated. Because if we believe the lies that are told about us, we're not going to be able to invest in the community the ways that we need to. What does that investment look like? It's cooperative economics. It's believing in Black institutions. It's having forgiveness for Black institutions that may not have their everything buttoned up, and allowing the same forgiveness that we give to white organizations. And so rather than complaining, we say lend a hand. And it's also for us, we tell our young people that we want them to be the authors of their own future. So they don't have to buy into the lies and the narratives that exist. So that cultural inoculation is really critical for us. And we do this through our New Way Forward Healing What's Hurting Black America curriculum.
That's awesome. I love it. This is like so empowering, right? To know all of the great work that's happening and the work that we're moving forward. So thank you so much.
You know, I just got to add one more thing too. I mean, because
Please.
we're seeing sort of as a product of Howard University, we're seeing an emergence of our communities really looking at the value of our historically Black colleges and universities. So I would say that it's always been a Wakanda. Welcome to the movement. And we have to continue to encourage our young people to go into those safe spaces and understand why it's so important. We don't have to fight for who we are there.
That's fantastic. And I think storytelling helps us paint that picture, right? Move you into the right space and make sure that you're hearing and listening and talking about Black joy, Black resilience, Black excellence in those spaces.
And understanding that those institutions have produced folks that our young people don't know about. So that storytelling is really critical.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Dr. T, I'd love to ask you a little bit about Black fatigue in our youth and what ways are you seeing that show up?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, first of all, can we do this tomorrow and the next day? Can this be my morning alarm? Like, this is so wonderful. And I feel so, inadequate, insufficient to be in this space with you all and your immense, efforts that you've been making in the community and, your years and years of wisdom. So I feel really honored and really grateful to be in this space with you all. I've mostly been a lifelong student. So as an undergraduate student at Princeton University, I studied health and human welfare. And so that's when I first started to get some exposure and understanding of terms like socioeconomic determinants of health. So, differences in people's environment that impact their health, like where people live, the kind of food people have access to, income inequality, and those kinds of things. Later on in medical school, I actually took a gap year in medical school and got a master's in public health from Harvard University. And that is, again, got to show the young people it's possible. So that is where I really started to dive into this a little bit more and see that, it's not a matter of race. It's not a matter of, being Black that is causing a higher likelihood for certain diseases. It's what's going on in our environment. It is racism. It is systemic inequalities that have led to differences in income, that have led to differences in, housing availability and where people live and how people live. And so that's been something that I think is largely missing from a lot of medical education, and certain schools are doing a really great job at trying to pull that in. So taking it to now in my early practice as a pediatrician, I think first and foremost, from an academic perspective, what you guys were saying around the generations of fatigue is so important in how that sets in, because there's really biology behind that. We're seeing with adverse childhood experiences, there's more research showing that people who have these traumatic experiences, whether it's neglect or abuse, dysfunction in the household, are then the more experiences people have before age 18, the higher likelihood they have of developing chronic health conditions, cancer, diabetes, hypertension, substance use disorders, mental illnesses. And it's not a direct if this, then this, but it's raising that likelihood there. And so I think it's really important when we think about when the burden of many of these traumatic events are layered upon Black people, we're going to see a higher likelihood of those conditions. And so that's what we're seeing in a lot of our Black people and a lot of our Black youth as well. And so the number one protective factor that we've seen in that, in order to kind of reduce that burden of the of ACEs, of adverse childhood experiences, is really a supportive relationship with a caring adult in their lives, in the child's life. I know I've had that. My mom was listening. Hey, mama. And I know that despite things that I've experienced in my life, that was somebody who I could always count on, that I could always trust in and be there for. And that was largely for her due to her great commitment to her own mental health and her own mental well-being. The things that were able to sustain her through, through therapy, through the church, through social connections, through family, through cooking, because she can throw down in the kitchen. She's from Louisiana, and so so these are the things that allowed her to be there for me in a way that took us from a place of coming from trauma and poverty and all of these things to, in one generation, I'm somebody who carries 3 degrees, 2 from Ivy League schools. So I think really that is an important thing I like to set out, that those relationships are what's immensely important for Black youth, for all youth, but especially Black youth. And we cannot really put that burden on the parent in terms of saying, oh yeah, just be perfect for your child, because I'm not a child, but I work with a lot of parents. Parenting is incredibly difficult. It is the hardest, I believe it's the hardest job out there. And without the supports, without the, financial supports, the emotional and mental health supports, people aren't going to be able to provide for their children in the way they are. And then that's going to lead to all the negative impacts on children's growth, development, and upbringing. And so I really see this in a lot of different ways, that we need to focus on adult mental health, and we need to focus on adult well-being for Black adults in our lives. We need to focus on, humanization rather than dehumanization of people and of Black folks, to be able to create that caring and loving environment for our children. It's vitally important. And again, mentorship plays into that. It doesn't have to just be a parent or a caregiver. It can be anyone in the community who's there for our Black children. So that was a lot. I will pause there.
That's so great, because now we're threading the needle, right? We're talking about how our mentors need to be resilient and have the education and the support mechanism. Then we're talking about how that trickles down to our youth and making sure that they can then be resilient and move forward. You mentioned mental health, and so I'd love to jump over to Sharon so that we can talk a little bit about mental health in the Black community, and how have you seen Black fatigue impacting the Black community, especially now? I mean, 2020 was, woo. So how have you seen it manifest?
Yeah. Again, just like everybody, Christina, thank you. This is amazing. So I just want to just throw that out there. You are amazing. This is amazing. Thank you. So yes, Mary actually addressed a lot of this, but I think for the Black community for a long time, having symptoms and not even knowing that this is a mental health challenge, right? So that has happened a lot of times in my practice, where I had a young person in her 20s who had panic attacks all the time and just didn't know why. And doctors were diagnosing her with bipolar and all these things. And I'm like, no, you are just really stressed out, right? So I think in my practice, what I've really tried to help people break apart is, you imagine having just a human experience, right? So you are having a human experience, and then having that human experience while being Black, but there is this added layer, right? So it's this added layer of being Black and breathing, being Black and walking, being Black and just being, right? So there's this added layer. And if you've just been born Black in America, you're not even second guessing this added layer of constant analysis that you are always having to do. So really, it's really me helping break that apart for people, because again, I don't even think they know. So that's really where the education comes there. And then now what's really been coming up is, because now this is like a hot topic right now since George Floyd, has been the inclusion and diversity. And so it's been a lot of people being fatigued and tired of having to explain this to people who are now having this revelation that these things are occurring, right? So a lot of times in my practice, it's really just about establishing boundaries for yourself. What can you do? What can you not explain today? Maybe you don't need to sit through the entire inclusion and diversity meeting. Maybe you need to take a break and then come back, right? But it's really around protecting your mental health while rest of America is catching up to what's been happening in America for a long time. So that's how I've been seeing it play out in the practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so important, right? That we create these boundaries. Again, this is sort of the theme, I think, of put on your mask first before you help others, right? Making sure that you have your self-care established, your wellness, taking care of your mental health, taking care of, and then you can help the youth, help your neighbor, help white folks understand that is, again, not our job, as Mary Frances said so eloquently. But if you have the bandwidth after establishing those boundaries, then perhaps that's something you choose to do. I'm curious about 2020. I know we've all gone, this past year has been, woo, we got a pandemic, we got all kinds of things happening all at the same time. And so, Dr. T, I'm wondering, have you seen different drivers of Black fatigue in our youth at, due to the pandemic or in connection with the pandemic that you weren't seeing before?
Absolutely, yeah. Unfortunately, what we've really seen, across the spectrum, but especially for Black youth, is that mental health is getting a lot worse. Mental illness is on the rise. Self-harm and suicide attempts are on the rise. Visits to the emergency department for those things, overdoses are going up. It's incredibly challenging for obviously the patients and families, but for providers as well as Black physicians, knowing and seeing that not just the fatigue of what's happening in our world, but also the disruptions in normal life. The children's jobs are to go to school and socialize and learn how to interact with people and figure out who they are and go through that process of identity formation and development. And all of that is being interrupted right now in the midst of COVID, in the midst of racial violence, terrorist attacks, all of these things. So it's really a challenge. And I see it in terms of people who have never had issues with depression, stress, anxiety, now presenting with these things. People who already had these symptoms and complaints before, all of those things are worsening. And on the flip side of that, trying to get treatment for those things, seeing mental health providers, psychiatrists, psychologists has been tougher and tougher because everyone's booked, because everyone's seeking it. And so it's been challenging where, children don't have that safe environment at school. For a lot of places, they're not able to see the school mental health providers and counselors who are often, school is often the only place where children get, especially for Black children, get any type of mental health care. And so that has been disrupted. I think also when it comes to just identity formation, when you have these constant images and narratives that dehumanize Black folks, and you're in a period of like, okay, well, I am a Black person. Now, how do I think about myself? How do I formulate my own identity and my own ideas about who I am and who I can be? When you're being faced with these things constantly in the media, what is that doing to you in your development? And so I think it's really important for all of us to be able to, be that mirror for these young Black children and show them excellence and to show them strength and to show them that, it's okay to feel challenged and to feel fatigued by these times, and that they are so much more than just this terrible image and this terrible pain and this terrible fatigue.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I have a couple of questions in the chat, and so I'd love to kick them over to you all and see what your thoughts are. One is, can we talk a little bit about the relationship between racial trauma and Black fatigue? And I think we are talking about that in a whole, but I wonder, Sharon, if you have sort of a thought on that linkage between sort of the historic trauma we have and the fatigue that we're feeling today. And then I'd love for Mary Frances Winters to also chime in on that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Dr. T actually addressed, as you said, we're talking a lot about this. When you have had images for a long time about standards of beauty, who is smart, who speaks properly, who's going to make it in this world, when you carry that, it is hard not to internalize that throughout your life. And I've seen this before where people actually reach certain statuses, right? Where maybe they're a doctor, maybe they finally have the dream, they got their hand on that table, right? Now they're at this dream, right? And still feeling undeserving of that. I hear this all the time. Why am I here? Am I smart enough? Am I good enough for this, right? And so even though they have, now I gotta throw it out there, Black people in any status, if they've made it to that table, they've had to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard. So they are more deserving than anybody at that table, right? And some are still internally doing that. So I think that's how racial trauma comes up all the time, that it's still internalized, even though you've made it based on, society standards of what making it is, right? But so again, just in mental health, it's really trying to honor ourselves and internalize these positive messages and really see yourself. So that's how that is. Yeah.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Mary Frances.
So Sharon, you're really talking about the imposter syndrome, right? When you were talking about having made it, however, still doubting yourself. So that's a part of leading to trauma. So many of the behavioral scientists and therapists like you all and doctors believe that trauma, Black trauma, racial trauma is akin to post-traumatic stress syndrome, or can be, and it can manifest in that way. And so a lot of the work that I do is in the workplace. And so I see a lot of, white managers who are rating, Black people, rating their performance and using this criteria to rate their performance. And, you can see in those ratings that they're using this standard. They're not taking into account that this Black employee had to work twice as hard, to get there, that in meetings, that the microaggressions, that are happening, being ignored. So just recently, I was doing work for a large company. They have 14 people in their senior leadership, their CEO, and this other 13 people, one Black person. So it was, on the Zoom, just like we are tonight. And they're introducing themselves. And so I said, once you introduce yourself, you go to the next person. You pick somebody to introduce themselves. Nobody picked the Black man. It was at the very end of the introductions. And the CEO said, okay, let's move forward. The Black man had not been introduced. So I had to step in and I say, John, Charles, whatever his name was, I said, Charles hasn't been introduced. Oh yeah, right? I mean, this was like just recently. Today, I was doing a keynote for a very large company. We had a Q&A afterwards. And somebody said, we were talking about storytelling. We were talking about lived experiences. We were talking about Black people being able to share and creating brave spaces in organizations. And somebody said, how do you not have the assertion that you are using, that you're becoming the victim, or that what is called victim mentality? And so I said back to them, I said, so maybe the person is a victim. Did you ever think about that? And so again, these narratives that we have that we're supposed to fit into, the angry Black woman, the threatening Black man, and all of those things that day after day, and we code shift, we code shift, right? We do all of these things. That is stress-inducing, trauma-inducing. It creates, when you think you're going to get the promotion and you come into work and you've worked so hard, and then the white man or the white woman got the promotion. So there's just so many things in our lives. In chapter 5, I talk about the layers of Black fatigue. So you're Black, you're a woman, you're perhaps physical disability, or you're Black and a woman and single mother and empower. There's so many layers that just continue to compound that. And as someone said earlier, we have this stigma about mental health. It's getting better. However, I know, I'm from that baby boom generation. Don't tell somebody they're crazy. Because that's fighting words, right? Right? And it's not that we're crazy, but that's that stigma, and it comes from back in the slavery days, where slaves were considered, if they ran away, right? What was it? It was some long word that I can't pronounce, but they were considered to have a mental illness. And so there's just so much that creates the trauma that we really have to find the Black joy, and we have to do it, Christina, through the arts. I think I was thinking about the children. I'm not going to take up too much more time, but I was thinking about when you were talking about the children and what we can do, particularly in this COVID time. Wouldn't it be wonderful to help them to feel whole and to give them the inspiration and the encouragement they need through the work that you do with Elevate?
Absolutely. I do quite a bit of work with the New Victory Theater. That is a plug for New Vic. They have done a tremendous job at taking their programming and bringing it online for our youth. Now it's accessible by, for everyone in the world, really, across the world, not just in New York City. So I encourage our parents to take a look at the New Victory Theater. But absolutely, I think we need to be building the narrative and the storytelling of Black excellence for our youth. I do wonder, Stephen, in your line of work, we have a question in the chat that's around allies and how, again, not trying to put the burden on Black folks to explain how allies can be helpful, but I wonder if in your line of work, you've seen certain things in mentorship that has been supported by allies and how we can support or how we can suggest for our allies to step up and support the Black community.
Absolutely. I just want to do a piggyback on what Mary was saying in terms of the corporate setting. One of our allies is Sephora and Values Partnership. They just released a report yesterday on bias in retail settings. And I think that would be a very informative report to share. And I'll make sure that I send it to you. My personal belief, I treat allyship like a university, and I have to have some admission requirements. We've been disappointed, we've been betrayed. If you look at the dictionary, accomplish and achieve come before the word ally. So that's the order that we want to see people come to this space in. January 6th changed a lot. This tennis with terms, if we say Black Lives Matter, and then you say Blue Lives Matter, I'm still trying to figure out what's a blue life. Did you go to Howard? Did you go to Hampton? Is it Michigan? Is it a Smurf? A blue life doesn't exist, right? It's a system response to our individual. We want to be seen, we want to be heard. So if a person comes to me and says that they want to be an ally, we have to give out some clear assignments. What type of achievement are you going to have when we're not there? So if there is a conversation around Black lives and blue lives, what happened on January 6th? Was the V in live silent? Because we didn't hear anything. It's a lie, right? And we have to be able to tell the truth about what really happened. When you look at the broader context, when I think about Mariam Carey, and I think about Sandra Bland, and I think about Oscar Grant, and you think about Breonna Taylor, Walter Scott, there were so many things that happened where lies were perpetrated and we never heard what actually happened. So rather than getting into this context around defunding the police, maybe we should say we need to de-slave patrol the police. We need our allies to get to the root cause of the systemic issues that we're dealing with. Because what happens is people get to, well, I know so-and-so and they're cops. It's not about good cops and bad cops. There's a lot of great people doing great work in communities, but we're trying to dismantle a system. And as Mary also pointed out, it's important for us to give young people a voice. So if there are allies that can bring our young people into spaces where they can share what's happening. In October of 2019, we brought in partnership with the National Black Justice Coalition, which does a lot of work around advocacy for the LGBT community, and the Association of Black Psychologists, we brought our young people from around the country to talk to the Congressional Black Caucus about the spike in Black child suicide. It's coming from their voices and not ours. So I think if we're going to talk about allyship, recognize that Black fatigue for us is all of this performative stuff that we're tired of. If you're gonna hire Black people during Black History Month, don't undercut them. It's bigger than Black History Month. We are valued, we recognize that. And as a matter of fact, don't even call if you're gonna come with a low ball offer. Again, this is just real talk, we're tired. And we have to have these honest conversations. We're not really concerned about whether someone's comfortable if we're living in a society where I have to look at a Blue Lives Matter flag next to a Confederate one. So you tell me what's wrong with that picture and you have that conversation with your people before you come to us and talk about what we need to be telling you. You already know the truth. This country spends a lot of money and time suppressing the truth, celebrating the Columbuses when we need to be talking about what happened in Haiti and that revolution, telling the young people the truth about the resilience that we have within.
Fantastic. Yes, yes, and yes. We definitely need to set the record straight. And I loved the idea that allyship is preceded by accomplishment. It's preceded by this prerequisite of really demonstrating your ability to be trusted, to understand the issues, to have empathy, to have listened. So thank you for that. I think that was a really brave way of saying what needs to be said. So I appreciate it. We have a couple more minutes. And so I want to circle back to our call to action. We always do a call to action towards the end of our segment, just so that way our audience can kind of understand, okay, as Black folks, what can we do to support and fortify our Black resilience? And as allies, what can they do to be a part of that fortification? I do have a question here in the chat that's really around tools to consider when dealing with Black fatigue. And so I wonder if I can start with you, Sharon, around, what tools would you give the audience to dealing with Black fatigue?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my personal favorites is I call it breathing in like love into a part of your body, right? So if you're feeling stressed, think about what part is hurting. Is it me personally? Is my shoulders. So I know I'm stressed when I'm like Sharon, relax, do this, right? So what you can do is literally grab onto that part of yourself and just breathe in till you can't breathe anymore and breathe out, right? And it's really just breathing in love into those parts of yourself that's stressed out. So if you're watching the news and it's hard, you can hold on to that. I've done that. I've actually have held on to my heart and have just breathed life into it. So that's my personal favorite. And I think it's just very simple. And again, any part of your body that you're feeling it. And my second tool that I do, it's my favorite again, is mindfulness. And mindfulness is really about being present in the moment and thinking about how each of your senses are experiencing joy. So when life is hard, for me, I have to do that. So if I'm in the shower, I'm like, ooh, this soap smells good, right? Like I'm just thinking about how my senses are activated. This warm water feels good on me right now, right? If I'm taking a walk, what am I seeing? What's pretty? Am I seeing the flowers, the trees? When I'm washing dishes, is the water warm, right? So just getting into this state of, in this moment right now, when this world around me is real hard, how am I experiencing joy in each of my senses? All of them. If you're eating, you can do the same thing. How does this taste? What are the spices in it? Right? You can do that for anything. So those are my favorites. So the breathe, right? The breathing in love into the parts of yourself, and then the mindfulness technique.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Those are so practical, tangible. I can do those right now, right? As we're doing this. So thank you for that. That was fantastic. Mary Frances, what would your call to action be? What would the tool be for you to give to our audience to combat or deal with Black fatigue?
So most of my work is in the workplace. And I say, this to chant all the time, I am worthy, I am worthy. And to remember, I am worthy. Do y'all remember the little boy? I don't know, he was about 4 years old. He was on national television, and he's a little Black boy, and his parents were teaching him as he was going to preschool to chant this, I am smart, I am good. Do you remember that? And he was walking to preschool every day. And so it's the affirmations. So when we go into the corporate world, we have a leave piece. We leave with Black people and other Indigenous people of color. We call it AFFIRM, and it's an acronym. And I won't go through the whole acronym because we don't have time. But affirm that you're worthy. And A is about allowing yourself to grieve. F is finding your village and leaning into the village. And so, but I won't go through all of them. And then for white people and those who want to be allies, we leave them with DARE, the acronym DARE. And the D stands for decenter yourself, and listen. The A stands for act, and the R stands for reflect on your privilege, and the E stands for educate yourself. Don't put the burden. So dare to step into it. So for Black people, we say affirm. It's something to remember. Always affirm that you are worthy, no matter what you're hearing, whether what messages you're getting from your employer, you're worthy.
That is fantastic. And if you send me those acronyms, we will add them to our resource page so everyone can take a look at those and internalize them. Thank you. That's so tangible and just, again, easy next steps. Dr. Woolridge, let's hear from you. What's your call to action or tools?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see this for everyone and all people, Black folks and allies, for different reasons. Black folks to deal with this fatigue and to focus on joy and build themselves. Allies to find the support and find the strength to do the action to achieve in the way that, Stephen was saying earlier, in order to become allies. So I'll give two things: one, my personal practice, and then two, more of a framework for thinking about wellness and mental wellness. Personal practice, I each morning wake up 30 minutes early, which sometimes means at 5:30 in the morning if I have to be at the hospital at 6:30. And I do mindfulness, 10-minute mindfulness practice on the Calm app. As soon as I get up, I make a list of 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I read a Bible devotional on the Bible app. They have like a little story thing that I do. And I do that every single day. And the days I forget to do that or I sleep in, I feel it in my body and in my spirit and in my soul that I'm not grounded and connected in the same way. So that's a strong personal recommendation. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram, call me Dr. T_T, because I talk about this stuff a lot on my Instagram. And then a framework is thinking about, I like to talk about mental health from the World Health Organization definition. So a state of well-being in which one can realize one's own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and contribute to one's community. So realizing one's own potential, the self aspect, coping with the normal stresses of life, normal stresses, so the stress aspect, and contributing to one's community, the society aspect. And so you really need all 3 of those pieces to be strengthened in order to build mental wellness. So those self-affirmations, taking care of your body physically and mentally, finding ways to cope with stress, whether it's through activity, exercise, mindfulness, finding your place in society and connecting with others in your society. Those are all going to be, and with your spirituality too, and with your faith, those are all going to be immensely important as we move through and move onwards and upwards.
Fantastic. Again, practical, that morning routine. I love it. I also have a morning routine. So I encourage folks to think about what makes you whole. How do you want to do that and get into a morning routine or any routine, an evening routine before you go to bed. That helps as well. Last but certainly not least, Stephen, what's your call to action for our viewers?
Radical self-care. There's some things we need to power down from social media and news that's creating trauma, pouring into our spiritual esteem. It's not in our cultural ethos to be alone. So if we need help, partnering with one another, seeking help, investing in Black businesses, investing in ourselves, and most importantly, continue to love our children. It's not those kids over there, it's our children, but we can't take care of them until we take care of ourselves. It's National Mentoring Month, so I have to say, go out and mentor. Get screened and trained, but find an organization or a young person. Dr. T talked about supportive relationships. I can't echo that enough.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I love it. Oh my goodness. What an evening. I truly appreciate all of your expertise and what a tremendous conversation. We actually went a little bit over because it was so enthralling. So I just appreciate your time this evening. I want to just close by saying we recognize that Black fatigue is a result of repeated variations of stress, to use Mary Frances Winter's definition. And it's coming from all aspects of life. It's coming from the workplace, the education system, our criminal justice system, the housing market, the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. And I also want to recognize that we just talked about actions that Black folks and allies can do to fortify and uplift and create resilience within the Black community. On Elevate's website, again, I urge you to go ahead and take a look at the resources. We have everything from articles to books to videos, tips. We have a 21-day challenge for diversity, equity, and inclusion and justice. We have ways to choose a therapist. So go ahead, take a look, browse, let us know what you learned. Hit us up on Instagram or at our email at info@elevatetheatercompany.com. I'd like to bring our artists back to the stage and just give them a big round of applause. We have had such a tremendous evening. Ashley, who is unable to be with us this evening, but was in the first pre-recorded video. Yalie, Marcus, your tremendous talent is so appreciated. And thank you for leading us into this conversation through storytelling, word, and creativity. We are just, we couldn't have started it any better way. I'd also like to thank our panelists, Mary Frances, Sharon, Dr. T, Stephen, I am so grateful to have your tangible examples of what Black fatigue is, your incredible calls to action that are so tangible and easy to implement. You know, things not adding burden to us, but allowing us to incorporate something into our everyday lives. This community tonight is a little bit stronger and a little bit healthier because of the expertise that you have shared with us. Big, huge shout out to the backstage crew, Wes and Al. We could not do it without you. You all don't know, we had a little bit of tech stuff going on, and they came together and made another seamless performance possible. So thank you. I'd also like to thank you, our audience. Thank you for your time, your attention, your questions. Remember that Elevate is here for you to create health and wellness within our community. We conclude our winter series on February 10th, right here on YouTube, with part 4, the health of sex and connection. I stumbled on the word sex. We'll be talking about sex. We'll be talking about dating. We'll be talking about the consequences of isolation during the COVID-19 pandemic, how that manifests in our relationships. And we'll have details on our website soon. So stay tuned for more information from Elevate Theater Company. I'd like to thank you all again. Happy New Year. Be brave, be resilient, take care of yourselves, be well, and elevate. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.